Picture a candle flickering in a grand palace room, its light barely reaching the painted ceiling above. The year is 1715, and Europe stands at the height of royal splendor. Courtiers bow before kings who claim divine authority. Peasants labor under feudal lords, priests preach obedience from gilded pulpits. In our history, this is the twilight before dawn, the moment before philosophers, scientists, and dreamers ignite a revolution of thought that will forever change humanity. But in this alternate timeline, the candlelight never brightens. The Enlightenment, that extraordinary age of discovery, liberty, and human reason, never spreads. The fire that once transformed Europe into the cradle of modern civilization never catches flame. And without it, the world becomes a very different place. Let's start with what goes wrong. In our timeline, the Enlightenment was born from tension between religion and reason, monarchy and freedom, superstition and science. It emerged from brave minds like Descartes, Locke, Newton, Voltaire, and Rousseau. But in this world, that fragile intellectual current is smothered early. The Catholic Church, still powerful and wary after the Reformation, tightens its grip across Europe. The Inquisition remains active, silencing scientists and burning forbidden texts. Galileo's trial in 1633, instead of marking a turning point toward freedom of thought, becomes a warning that endures for centuries. Newton's Principia Mathematica, if written at all, is banned as heresy. The universities of Europe, instead of becoming laboratories of reason, remain temples of theology. Education becomes memorization of scripture, not exploration of nature. Without the Enlightenment, there are no salons in Paris, no coffee houses buzzing with debate, no encyclopedia gathering human knowledge. Ideas remain chained to religion and royal authority. Monarchs rule absolutely, and no one dares suggest that all men are created equal. The very notion of individual rights never takes root. Let's imagine daily life in this world. A young student in Paris, instead of reading Rousseau, studies the Catechism. He dreams not of revolution, but of priesthood. In London, a scientist like Isaac Newton, born in 1643, never looks to the heavens with questions of gravity. The stars remain divine mysteries, not objects of study. A peasant in Prussia prays for rain instead of learning to measure it. The printing press exists, but it spreads sermons, not science. The monarchs of Europe rejoice. Without the Enlightenment, there are no revolutions to fear. Louis XIV's successors rule unchallenged in Versailles. The Stuarts, never overthrown, continue their divine monarchy in England. The Habsburgs tightened their hold on Central Europe. Even Russia remains sealed under Tsarist autocracy without the influence of Western liberal thought. Religion becomes the unchallenged center of life once more. Churches remain filled, but not with spiritual awakening, with conformity. Faith becomes law. The church censors all writing, all art, all discovery. Even medicine stagnates without scientific inquiry. The germ theory of disease never develops. Hospitals remain primitive. Epidemics continue unchecked. Smallpox, cholera, and plague linger deep into the 19th century. Technology suffers too. The Enlightenment gave birth to the scientific method, a disciplined way of testing and proving ideas. Without it, there are no steam engines, no factories, no railways. The Industrial Revolution never begins. Cities remain small, workshops stay manual, and economies stagnate under medieval systems. The average peasant's life in 1800 looks no different from that of a peasant in 1400. Toil, faith, and submission. Art and literature take a darker turn. Without the challenge of Enlightenment rationalism, art serves the church and monarchy. Painters depict saints and kings, not ordinary people. There are no novels exploring human emotion or social injustice, no Candide, no Les Miserables, no Pride and Prejudice. The human soul remains unexplored because the human mind remains unquestioned. Now imagine the ripple effects beyond Europe. The Americas remain colonies bound to their European masters. In our history, Enlightenment ideas fueled independence, the belief that governments derive power from the consent of the governed. But in this world, Thomas Jefferson never reads Locke, Benjamin Franklin never experiments with electricity, the United States of America is never born. The 13 colonies stay under British rule, governed by kings and bishops. The idea of we the people never exists. The French Revolution never erupts either. France remains a divine monarchy into the 19th century, its people obedient under crown and cross. There is no cry for liberty, equality, fraternity, only submission and hierarchy. The Bastille still stands, not as a memory of tyranny, but as a thriving prison for dissidents who dared to think freely. Without the Enlightenment, slavery remains unchallenged. The abolitionist movements of the 18th and 19th centuries were fueled by Enlightenment ideals of human equality and moral progress. Without those, slavery endures. African men and women remain property across the Americas and Europe well into the 20th century. The concept of universal rights never takes root, and racism becomes not a moral stain but a divine justification, written, enforced, and eternal. In Asia and Africa, colonialism grows harsher. Without Enlightenment thought questioning imperialism, European empires remain proudly exploitative. Missionaries spread faith, not compassion. Scientists never emerge to argue against hierarchy or ethnocentrism. The colonial order remains not just unbroken but sanctified. And yet, history is never entirely still. Even in this darker timeline, some sparks survive, hidden, faint but persistent. In an old monastery in Italy, a young monk discovers forgotten Greek manuscripts, Aristotle, Archimedes, and Euclid. Reading them in secret, he begins to question the Church's version of the cosmos. In a London workshop, a tinkerer named James Watt builds a strange steam-powered contraption but is ordered to destroy it as witchcraft. In China, scholars continue the study of mechanics and optics unnoticed by Europe's priests. The world of reason flickers in isolated corners, struggling against centuries of darkness. The 19th century dawns without industry or revolution. The streets of Paris are still lit by candlelight, the skies of London free from factory smoke. Peasants still plow fields by hand, nobles still dine under chandeliers. The population remains smaller, poverty widespread, progress halted. Without steamships or railways, continents remain distant. The world feels vast again, slow, disconnected, almost medieval, but the mind cannot stay caged forever. Around 1850, scattered thinkers across Europe, forbidden philosophers, rebellious priests, curious scientists begin forming secret circles. They call themselves the Seekers. They meet in basements, exchanging smuggled books and dangerous ideas. They study anatomy, astronomy, and chemistry under threat of death. Slowly, a second enlightenment begins, not in splendor and salons, but in whispers and candlelight. This underground revolution reshapes the 19th century. Instead of grand revolutions, progress comes as heresy. Inventors hide their work from kings. Philosophers disguise their writings as religious commentary. When a man in Germany publishes a book suggesting that species evolve, the church orders his execution. His ideas vanish into legend. Charles Darwin becomes a martyr, not a scientist. The 20th century arrives late, dim, and heavy with repression. There are no democracies, no parliaments of the people, no constitutions. Monarchs still rule, though their crowns grow brittle. The printing press, centuries old, remains censored. Education is for the elite, the masses remain illiterate. Science advances in fits and starts, often through accidents and secrets. Electricity is discovered by chance in monasteries, not laboratories. The first airships rise not for exploration but as symbols of royal power. And then, the ultimate irony, war returns but not as we know it. Without Enlightenment-era diplomacy, without rational international law, Europe descends into dynastic wars once more. The Great War, when it comes, is not fought for freedom or democracy, but for faith and kingship. Catholic France and Spain battle Protestant Prussia and Sweden in a conflict resembling the 30 Years' War reborn. Millions die in the name of God and glory, not nationalism or ideology. The world bleeds for old causes. By the mid-20th century, the planet is exhausted but unchanged. There is no United Nations, no concept of human rights. The phrase science fiction doesn't exist. There is no science to dream about. The stars remain untouchable, their secrets lost to theology. The moon has never felt the step of man. The internet, the light bulb, the vaccine, none of it exists. Humanity remains bound to the earth, to superstition, to silence. And yet, even here, there is something tragically beautiful. Humanity endures. A peasant still sings while harvesting wheat. A mother still prays for her child. A philosopher still writes by candlelight, knowing no one may ever read his words. The longing for truth, the spark of curiosity, these cannot be erased, only delayed. By 2100 in this alternate timeline, a slow dawn begins. Technology emerges piece by piece, rediscovered, reimagined, reborn. Science rises not as rebellion, but as revelation. Religion begins to yield, not from defeat, but exhaustion. Humanity, centuries late, begins its enlightenment, not in the 17th century, but in the 22nd. The world we know was shaped by courage, by people who dared to ask why. Without them, we would still be subjects, not citizens, believers, not thinkers. The Enlightenment didn't just give us technology. It gave us ourselves. So, what do you think? Would a world without the Enlightenment be peaceful in its faith or trapped forever in its ignorance? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Sheriff Reactions for daily flips, because history isn't just what happened, it's what could have happened.